I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing about how my wife, Amanda, turned out to be cheating on me. We've been married for 5 years, and honestly, I thought we were solid. Sure, like any couple, we had our ups and downs, but nothing that seemed insurmountable. I was busy with my law firm, working long hours trying to build a career, and Amanda was always busy with her social life, but she was good at hiding her bullshit. Or so I thought. It started subtly. Little things that I brushed off at first. She'd be a little more distant, quick to snap at me over small stuff, and her phone suddenly got more secretive. She'd leave it face down, and when I asked about it, she'd roll her eyes and call me paranoid. Typical Amanda, bitchy when she felt guilty, dismissive when she was lying. But I wasn't naive. I just wanted to think she was tired or stressed or whatever excuse I could come up with. Still, I couldn't shake this feeling that something was wrong. I'd catch her sneaking glances at her phone when she thought I wasn't looking, or hearing her hang up, in a rush when I walked into the room. Then one night I was going through some papers in our bedroom, and I found a receipt from that courtroom sketch artist, Mark. I didn't think much of it, it was just a slip-up, probably from when I was testifying at that high-profile trial I was involved in. I had to do a lot of media, and there were sketch artists in the courtroom. But what caught my eye was the date. It was from a few weeks after the trial wrapped up. I looked a little closer and saw that Amanda had bought tickets to a gallery he was exhibiting in. I remember thinking, okay, maybe she's just going to see his art. But then I found his sketches, and that's when everything flipped. These sketches weren't just typical courtroom doodles. They were of her, in intimate settings, in bed, on her couch, at a hotel. The sketches captured her in states that no innocent person would be caught dead in if they didn't know they were being watched or drawn. And the worst part, they were labeled with dates and locations, all matching the times I was working late or out of town. How did I not see this before? How could she have been cheating on me right under my nose, and I was too busy trying to prove my innocence in court to notice? I was stunned. My stomach sank. I felt like I'd been hit by a truck. It was like my mind refused to believe what I was looking at. Amanda, my wife, the woman I trusted, was with this sketch artist behind my back, and I had the proof right there in my hands. I wanted to call her right then and there, but I knew I had to think. I had to see her face to face, confront her, get her side of the story, or maybe just shut her down for good. So the next day I arranged to meet her at a coffee shop. I didn't tell her what I knew. I just said I needed to talk. She showed up looking all bitchy as usual, with that smirk that she always wore when she thought she could get away with something. We sat down, and I started by acting calm, almost detached. I told her I found something odd in my files. A receipt, a ticket. She rolled her eyes, said I was overthinking, that I was paranoid. That's her go-to line. She always calls me paranoid when she's caught in a lie. Then I laid out what I'd found. Her face went pale for a second, then she snapped. "You're crazy. You think I'm cheating on you with some sketch artist? Please. Mark is just a friend. It's not what you think." That's when I saw the flicker of guilt behind her eyes, but she quickly masked it with that nasty attitude. I pressed her, asked her why she was lying, why she was hiding things. She kept denying, got defensive, called me insecure, jealous, and said I was ruining what we had over some stupid sketches. She told me I was imagining things, that she loved me, and I was just insecure because I wasn't paying enough attention. But I knew better. I'd seen the evidence. And that's when the real emotional torment started to kick in. I was furious, hurt, betrayed, but also confused. Part of me still wanted to believe her, wanted to pretend it was just a misunderstanding. But deep down I knew Amanda had been screwing around with Mark for months, maybe longer. And she was lying her ass off, trying to spin me some bullshit about how it was nothing, just friends. I wanted to scream, to throw her out, but I just sat there, staring at her, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. After that conversation, nothing really changed, but everything felt different. I started replaying everything I knew or thought I knew about Amanda. The way she'd been acting lately, the lies, the little excuses she'd throw at me. I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd been blind, that I'd let her walk all over me. And the worst part, I still loved her. Or at least I wanted to. But I also hated her for what she'd done. I spent the next few days obsessively going over those sketches, trying to understand how she could do this. The thing that kept echoing in my mind was how casual she looked in those drawings, how comfortable. like she didn't give a damn that she was betraying her own marriage. It made me feel sick to my stomach just thinking about how many nights she'd spent with Mark, laughing, fucking, pretending everything was okay. I kept asking myself why. Why did she do it? Was I not enough? Did she ever love me? Or was I just some placeholder while she had her fun with him? I started noticing small things. Her phone kept going off when I was near and she'd quickly hide it. She'd get defensive if I tried to look over her shoulder. She'd snap at me for no reason, call me insecure or paranoid. It felt like she was trying to push me away, so I'd just go along with it, pretending I didn't see her sneaking around. But I was done being a fool. I had to do something. I had to figure out how deep this thing went. One night, I decided to follow her. I waited until she left for a girls' night out, but I grabbed her phone first, just to see where she'd go. I figured if she was cheating, she'd slip up eventually. Sure enough, she texted, "Can't wait to see you tonight," and the location was some hotel downtown. My stomach turned again. She was actually meeting him. Her words, her secret rendezvous, I couldn't believe. I was seeing this with my own eyes. I'd always thought I was a good husband, that I provided and protected her, and she was out screwing around with some artist she barely even knew. That night, I didn't sleep much. I was a mess of anger, sadness, and confusion. Part of me wanted to confront her right then, demand answers. But I knew if I did, it would turn into a fight, and I wasn't in the mood to yell or break down. Instead, I just sat there, feeling the weight of what I'd uncovered. I kept asking myself how I missed all of this, how I never saw her in that way, how she managed to hide her lies so well. It made me feel pathetic, but also furious that she'd played me like a damn fool for years. The next morning, I got up early, made a plan. I was going to catch her in the act, or at least get her to admit everything. I couldn't keep pretending I didn't know. I called her at work, told her I was sick and needed to talk. When she showed up that afternoon, I was already waiting. In the living room, I didn't hold back. I told her I knew she was cheating, that I had proof, and I wasn't going to let her lie her way out of it anymore. Her reaction, she just scoffed, rolled her eyes, and said I was overreacting. "You're crazy, Jack," she said. "You always think the worst. I don't know what you want me to say." That was it. The moment I realized I couldn't keep pretending she still loved me or that she cared about what I felt. She was a manipulative, selfish bitch who thought she could get away with whatever she wanted, and she wasn't going to stop. I felt my chest tighten, my blood boiling. I wanted to tear her apart, to make her feel what I felt: betrayed, humiliated, crushed. But instead, I stayed quiet, watched her lie again, and decided I needed to get out of this mess. I told her I was done, that I wasn't going to be her fool anymore. She just looked at me like I was crazy, told me I was overreacting again, and left the room. That's when I finally started accepting what I'd always suspected but never wanted to admit. Amanda was a liar, a cheat, and a user. She'd been screwing around with Mark, the sketch artist, for months, and I was just another fool who thought I was enough. I couldn't keep living in this nightmare. I had to decide whether to fight for my marriage or walk away. Honestly, I didn't know if I had the strength for either right now. All I knew was that I'd been betrayed in the worst way possible, and I'd never see her the same again. After that confrontation, everything inside me felt like it shattered into pieces. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, and honestly, I couldn't even think straight. The trust I had in Amanda was gone, and what replaced it was a mix of anger, despair, and a sick sense of disappointment I didn't even know I was capable of feeling. I kept replaying that night over and over, trying to piece together how I'd been so blind, how I'd missed all the signs. It was like I'd been living in a fog, and now that it was lifted, all I saw was this ugly truth staring right back at me. I started noticing the little things, the way Amanda was avoiding me, the way she'd suddenly be busy when I wanted to talk, her phone constantly ringing or vibrating when she thought I wasn't looking. Every small lie, every dismissive gesture, it all added up. I guess I was just hoping I was wrong, hoping she'd come clean and tell me it was all some big mistake. But deep down, I knew better. I'd seen the sketches, I'd seen her in those intimate settings, and I knew that I was living with a woman who had no problem lying in my face and sneaking around behind my back. I decided I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. I needed to know exactly how far this thing went, so I started digging deeper. I got her phone when she wasn't paying attention, combed through her messages and social media. That's when I found the texts. Not just the typical flirtatious stuff, but outright explicit exchanges. She was telling him things she'd never say to me, how much she loved the way he drew her, how she needed him, and how their affair was better than anything we had. I was sick reading it. It was like a punch to the gut all over again. I also found that she'd been meeting him for art sessions and private sketches. I knew about the gallery, but I didn't realize how involved they were. The more I uncovered, the more I realized how deep this rabbit hole went. Amanda was lying to my face, and I was just too stupid or too blind to see it. Or maybe I didn't want to see it. But now, there was no denying it. The woman I married, the woman I loved or thought I loved, was cheating on me with a man who'd been sketching her in bed, in the shower, in her most vulnerable moments. It hit me like a freight train. I was furious but also devastated. I felt betrayed in ways I never thought possible. I'd always prided myself on honesty and integrity. My work depended on that, yet I'd been blind to hers. And now I was stuck in this mess, trying to process how I was going to face her again. Part of me wanted to scream, to break things, to punish her for what she did. But another part just wanted to disappear, too. Crawl into a hole and never come out. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept tossing and turning, thinking about how to handle this. I had to confront her again, but I also felt like I needed to get some distance, to gather my thoughts and figure out my next move. So I called up my best friend Mike and told him everything. I needed someone to talk to, someone who wouldn't judge, just listen. I told him I was thinking about divorce, about ending it all because I couldn't handle the betrayal. Mike told me to breathe, to think carefully, and not to do anything reckless. But honestly, I was already past that point. I'd never felt this broken before. The next day, I decided I'd had enough. I couldn't live with her, not knowing when she'd be sneaking around, not knowing if she still loved me or if I was just some placeholder. I made a plan to leave quietly, get my stuff, and get the hell out. The idea of staying and trying to work things out seemed pointless now. She lied too many times, betrayed me too deeply. I knew I'd never be able to trust her again, and what's a marriage without trust? It's nothing. I was just about to do it, pack my bags, walk out, and never look back when she called me. That bitch had the nerve to pretend she was sorry, to cry and say she loved me, promise everything would be different. She begged me to stay, said she'd cut all ties with Mark, that she'd go to therapy, whatever it took. Honestly, I didn't believe her. But I was tired. Tired of fighting, tired of feeling like I was living in some twisted nightmare. So I told her I'd think about it. But somewhere deep inside, I knew this was the end. I didn't want to be with someone who had no respect for me, for our vows, or for what we built. I just wanted to be done with the lies, the cheating, the mind games. I needed to find myself again. I needed to stop feeling like the fool I'd been for so long. That's how I ended up at this crossroads, trying to figure out what the hell comes next. After that night of her begging and crying, I felt like I was caught in a storm I could escape from. Part of me wanted to believe her, to give her a second chance because, honestly, I still loved her, or maybe I just didn't want to face the reality that I'd been played. But another part, the cold, rational part that had been trying to wake up for days, knew I couldn't go back to that sham of a marriage. Not after discovering she'd been lying to me, sneaking around with Mark, showing no remorse. The next few days were a blur. I stayed at a buddy's place, trying to get some space to breathe and process everything. I spent hours staring at those sketches, that evidence of her betrayal, and asking myself how I missed all of this. How I didn't see that she was so miserable, or that she was secretly craving this affair. Maybe I was just too busy trying to be a good husband, too focused on work and pretending everything was fine. But the truth is, I'd been blind. Completely blind. Meanwhile, Amanda kept texting me, calling me, trying to guilt-trip me into staying. Tell me she'd changed, that she was sorry, that she loved me and only me. I didn't buy a word of it. I knew her game now. It was all manipulation. She was trying to guilt me into staying so that she could keep her secret life intact. But I wasn't falling for it. I knew what she was capable of, and I'd learned the hard way that trust with her was gone for good. One afternoon, I decided I had to see her face to face again. I needed to hear her say it to see if she still tried to deny everything or if she'd finally admit she was cheating. I told her I was coming over and she tried to act normal like everything was fine. But I could see the panic behind her eyes, the way she fidgeted and avoided my gaze. When I walked into that room, I just stared at her and I said, "Amanda, I know everything. The sketches, the texts, the meetings. I know you've been screwing around with Mark. Don't even try to lie to me now." Her face went pale, then she scoffed, "You're crazy. This is all a misunderstanding. I don't know what you're talking about." I didn't flinch. I just crossed my arms and looked at her. Coldly, "Stop with the lies. I saw the sketches. I read the messages. You're not the person I thought I married. You've been betraying me from the start." She started crying, trying to manipulate me, saying she was sorry, that she didn't mean to hurt me, that it was just sex, that it meant nothing. But I knew better. It wasn't just sex. It was her hiding her whole life behind his sketches, her sneaking around behind my back, lying every step of the way. That moment was a turning point. I realized I couldn't keep pretending I was okay with this. I couldn't keep convincing myself that maybe she'd change or that we could somehow fix this. Because she had shown me who she really was, a selfish woman who lied and cheated and didn't care about the damage she caused. And I was tired of being the fool, the guy who kept giving her chances, only to get betrayed again. I told her I was done, that I couldn't be with someone who disrespected me that way. I said I was going to leave, that I deserved better. Her reaction, she yelled, called me selfish, said I was overreacting, that I was ruining everything. But I didn't care anymore. I'd made up my mind. I was walking away from this nightmare. I packed a bag that night, took only what I needed and left. I didn't tell her where I was going, I just needed to get out of there to clear my head. I felt numb, almost like I was on autopilot. I knew it was the right decision, but it still hurt so bad. The love I'd thought we had was gone, replaced by this bitter, raw feeling of betrayal. I kept telling myself I'd survive this, that I'd come out stronger, or at least that I had to. Now I'm staying at a friend's place trying to get my head together. I still see her texts and messages, still hear her voice in my mind. Part of me wants to forgive, to forget, to pretend none of this happened. But I know I can't. I've learned a brutal lesson about trust and betrayal. No matter how much I loved her or how much I wanted things to work out, I can't ignore the truth. Amanda cheated, lied, and broke me. And I don't know if I'll ever be able to look at her the same way again. The days that followed were the hardest of my life. Every waking moment was filled with a mix of anger, sadness, and a gnawing sense of betrayal that refused to go away. I kept thinking about all the times I had trusted her, all the moments I thought were ours. It's crazy how someone can wear a mask for so long and then suddenly, everything you thought was real crumbles in an instant. The worst part, knowing she had been lying to my face, pretending everything was normal while secretly sneaking around with Mark, the sketch artist. I kept replaying the night I confronted her, over and over, trying to find some way to make sense of it all. How could the woman I married, the woman I loved, be capable of this? I asked myself if I'd missed the signs, if I'd been blind, or if I was just too stupid to see what was happening right under my nose. The truth was, I'd always known she was a bitchy, manipulative woman. Her attitude made that clear. But I never thought she'd be unfaithful. That was the bottom line. I didn't want to believe she was that kind of person, but the evidence was there. It was staring me in the face. I decided I needed to take a break from everything, so I blocked her on my phone and social media. I didn't want to see her face, hear her voice, or even think about her anymore. I bought a one-way ticket out of town just to get away, to clear my head. I needed space to breathe. For the first few days, I stayed with a friend, just drinking whiskey, trying to numb the pain. I felt like I was going crazy, like I was living in some bad nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I never thought I'd be in a situation where I'd question everything I knew about my marriage, about my wife. But then, something changed. I realized I had to stop being a victim. I had to take control of this mess, even if it meant facing more pain. I started to think about what I really wanted next. Was I going to fight for her, or was I done? Honestly, part of me still wanted to believe she'd change, that somehow This was just a mistake she'd make amends for, but deep down I knew better. She wasn't the woman I thought she was, and I didn't want to be her fool anymore. One day I sat down and wrote a long letter to myself. Not to her, not to anyone else, just me. I poured out everything I felt, how betrayed I was, how angry, how hurt. I also listed what I needed to do next. I knew I couldn't keep living like this, pretending everything was okay. I had to decide whether to fight for the marriage or walk away for good. I knew that forgiving her wouldn't be easy, not ever, but I also realized I deserved peace. I deserved someone who respected me, who valued what we had. That night I finally made up my mind. I was done. Done chasing her lies, done pretending I didn't see the truth. I'd been a fool for too long, and I refused to be one anymore. I was going to cut ties, start over, and rebuild my life without her. It was terrifying, but also freeing. For the first time since this whole mess began, I felt a flicker of clarity. I wasn't going to let her destroy me. Not anymore. Not after what I'd been through. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but I was ready to face whatever was coming. Because at the end of the day, I had to do what was right for me. That decision didn't come overnight, but once I made it, a huge weight lifted from my shoulders. I started packing my things, not with anger anymore, but with a sense of finally taking control. I knew I was about to walk into an uncertain future, but for the first time in weeks I felt a little hope. I realized I'd been holding on to this idea of us, this perfect life, when the truth was, Amanda had been trying to destroy that from the start. Leaving her was the hardest thing I've ever done. I didn't want to do it, but I knew I had no choice. I remembered the nights I stayed up thinking I could fix her, that maybe she'd see reason, that somehow we'd find our way back. But now I understood that some betrayals can't be forgiven. Trust, once broken like that, isn't just cracked, it's shattered into a million pieces I can't ever put back together, and I refuse to spend my life trying to glue those pieces back. When I finally walked out the door, I felt both relief and heartbreak. It was like saying goodbye to a part of myself I didn't recognize anymore. I felt betrayed, humiliated, but also oddly liberated. For the first time, I allowed myself to feel everything: anger, sadness, disappointment, and then slowly, acceptance. I knew I had to let go of the woman I thought I knew and focus on rebuilding my own life. That's what I owe myself. Since then, I've been trying to piece myself back together. I've cut off all contact with Amanda, cleaned out the house, and started therapy to deal with the emotional fallout. It's been a roller coaster. Some days I feel strong, other days I feel like giving up. But I remind myself that I'm still here, still fighting to find my way. I've learned that betrayal cuts deep, but it also teaches you resilience. Sometimes, you have to go through hell to come out on the other side stronger. Looking back, I realize I was naive. I thought love was enough to keep us together, but I learned that respect and honesty are what really matter. I don't regret loving Amanda, but I do regret trusting her so blindly. If anything, this whole ordeal has taught me to be more cautious, more aware of what's real and what is. I don't blame myself for what happened. I blame her for choosing to betray me and lie for so long. Now I'm focusing on myself. I've started dating again, taking small steps to rebuild my confidence. I know I'll never forget what happened, but I also know I can survive it. I'm stronger than I thought, and I refuse to let her betrayal define me. My life goes on, and I finally feel ready to move forward. Trust is a fragile thing, and I've learned that sometimes the best thing you can do is walk away and start fresh. Because at the end of the day, I owe that to myself to find peace and happiness, even after everything I've been through.